I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop.
This episode is brought to you by TaxAct. Don't do your taxes alone. Join TaxAct's National Admin Night. Admin nights are social gatherings for getting through your to-do list. So get ready for a night of fun, finding deductions, and filing taxes with TaxAct, where you can file your federal and state return for just $49 through April 8. Let's get together and get them over with. Visit taxact.com/admin-night for details.
LinkedIn is pretty amazing at helping you grow your small business. We cannot stop your new clients from emailing you at 3 a.m. We can help you sell, market, and hire in one place. We cannot help you be in 3 places at once. And while we can't help you organize your calendar, LinkedIn can help you land more clients so you have a calendar to organize. Grow your small business on LinkedIn. Learn more at linkedin.com/smallbusiness.
I think that you do have to realize, and that's something I think travel helps a lot with, that there is value in just having fun. There is value in just enjoying yourself. That is valuable. It doesn't have to be productive. It doesn't have to make you money. It doesn't have to, there's something really wonderful about just enjoying yourself and continuing to play throughout life. It keeps you young. It keeps you more productive.
That is Jen Ruiz, today's guest. Jen has been striking that balance ever since she decided to go on a quest to take 12 trips in 12 months while working full-time as a lawyer, a simple concept that radically changed her life. And some of the ideas and perspectives you hear today just might impact yours as well. Thanks for being here and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show, my friend. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. And if you want more travel gold, some ideas for destinations to visit, all the stuff we do on the show, but the stuff that's not on the show, which is in the newsletter, go over to ZeroToTravel.com/newsletter. You can sign up. I send one out once a week, and it's free. Today on the show, you're going to hear from Jen Ruiz, who was employed full-time as an attorney, obviously put a lot of time and effort into her education to get to that point. She set out to take 12 trips in 12 months before her 30th birthday, ended up taking 20 trips in 20 months. She found a whole new career path, and she actually documents this journey in her new memoir, 12 Trips in 12 Months. Make your own solo travel magic. We're going to talk about, of course, solo travel today. You're going to hear some advice on self-publishing versus traditional publishing, how to go about that, making the transition to travel from a full-time job, how to flip any perceived drawbacks that might be holding you back and turn them into benefits, solo travel tips, as I mentioned, destinations to visit, and practical advice for travel with a full-time job, and loads more. Jen's a 5-time Amazon bestselling author, 3-time TEDx speaker, and solo travel maven. She helps people change their own lives through travel. So we share a similar mission, and you can learn more about her at jenonajetplane.com. Stick around on the back end after the conversation. I'm going to share with you a power question that I pulled from this episode that can really perhaps help you change some things that are challenges and turn them into things that can work for you. And I'm going to give a shout out to a listener who's prepping for a 5-month trip. This is insane. And I think it's a good example of some ways that things can change when you start getting ready to travel, when you actually get into the process of preparing to take a bit of an extended trip. So all of that coming on the back end of the conversation. For now, please enjoy my chat with Jen. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the other side, my friend. Cheers. Jen Ruiz, welcome back to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, Jason. How are you?
I am great. I mean, it's been a while. I was looking back and I see that we last spoke in 2018, it's been some years, although, it doesn't feel that long ago for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, what's going on? A lot's happened. And is that 5, 6 years, 7 years?
Yes.
I'm doing math wrong.
It has definitely been a long time. Time flies, but you're right. It doesn't feel that way. I don't know if it's just because we're grasping onto time as we get older. But I think I spoke with you right when I quit my job to pursue law, travel blogging full time. And I've been doing it now for however long, 5, 6, 7 years. And it's been really wonderful. It's been a surprising career. A lot of different, things have changed. There's a lot of ups and downs. But yeah, gave 3 TEDx talks, self-published 5 books, and then I got a traditional book deal for my memoir. I started doing short form video content, right? That I don't think anybody really saw coming. But that has become the thing. And so my short form videos have gotten more than 100 million views. And it's just been wild. I have a crazy summer ahead of me, 13 city book tour, 7 countries on a 2-week cruise, 2 conferences, one I'm keynoting. And it just feels kind of surreal.
Yeah. Life's tough. Well, I mean, it is, but it is tough. I mean, people see, well, we're going to get into that, kind of get past some of the social media stuff and everything. So we like to dive deep here. But do you have a home base?
I do now. Yes. So for the last 3 years, I was in Puerto Rico. But then I recently moved, almost a year now, to St. Pete, Florida.
Yeah.
So I was able to.
Great town. Like a little bit of a hidden gem, I feel. I was there years ago.
I love it. It is easy to access Tampa Airport, which is a decent size airport, to get anywhere I need to get. And I was able to buy my first property here. So finally at 35, I became a homeowner. And it feels really good to have a place to put up all my souvenirs and just come back at the end of the day.
Nice. I was waiting. I think it was around that age that I got my first property. And I was kind of fighting it because I had the mindset of this is going to prevent me from traveling. So I had to flip that. And that's something we're going to talk about today, I think, flipping your mindset a bit. But, my stepmom is Puerto Rican. You have Puerto Rican heritage, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
Yeah. Are both your parents from
yes.
Puerto Rico? Or?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And so did you live there before you spent some time there recently? Or how connected are you when you go back to Puerto Rico? How does that feel for you just as somebody who has that as their background?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I was born on the island. I lived there till I was 6. And my mom immediately put me in English speaking schools. She was a teacher, so she was able to get free tuition for me, so that I wouldn't have an accent coming to the mainland, because she knew that was something that was in our future. And then I lived on the mainland for, 20 years or so. And then I decided to come back after I transitioned, because I was able to rent out my family's home there. And so I was able to just live there during the pandemic in a time where, things were a little bit unstable. I had kind of a stable place to be. Nobody was going to sell the property out from under me or anything like that. So it was. And at the same time, it was my first time living in Puerto Rico as an adult. So it was really nice to be acquainted with the island, from that grown standpoint where I'm discovering these things myself. And it was really a game changer for my career. It did a lot for me in terms of being able to write about Puerto Rico, as somebody who was on the ground, a local's perspective for so many years. And it just really helped me, be reconnected in that sense. It was a really tough decision to leave. I had been looking for roots. I know that, you want to be untethered, but at the same time, I definitely felt that sense of wanting to have a place that I had a routine and I had people and, I felt like that was home. And I tried for a long time in Puerto Rico to build that. And so it wasn't easy to move, but I'm happy with where I am now. I have family just an hour away. So we're the closest I've ever been to family. I was able to spend Mother's Day with my mom, which is just something that I haven't been able to do. I've sent gifts from afar. So it's really nice. And I think I'm where I'm meant to be. And Puerto Rico was an important step in that journey.
That connecting, because you mentioned, when you move somewhere, like all the things you have to do, you want to build a community, make friends, the routines and all that stuff. But then you have the other layer of you were actually reconnecting with the culture that you're from, or that you grew up in, at least till you were 6. And so that adds a whole other level than just moving to another city in the same country. So for you, like, how has that changed your relationship with living in the States?
It's definitely changed my relationship with the island. I feel like I know the island a lot more intimately after so many years there, where I was able to just really explore and get to the hidden gems. So I feel like I know it beyond just San Juan or the main, El Yunque, like the main things that people know about the island. I feel like I really got to know a lot in the time that I was there, especially because it was a time when travel was reduced. And so local travel was very heightened. And so I'm very grateful for that. And now coming back, I'm grateful for all of the things we have here as well. Island life is fantastic. It is paradise, but it's not easy. 85% of Puerto Rico's food is imported. So it can be really hard to find fresh produce. Here in the States, you have it in abundance. You can walk into a supermarket and everything is fresh. If something has, mold on it, you can get a discount. In Puerto Rico, it's just kind of like how this is sold. So it's harder to find that fresh produce. And there are a lot of people on the island that are making, moves to try to rectify that, local farms that are trying to pop up and, supply the island with more produce. But it's just definitely something that's tougher to find there than it is here in the US. Same thing with power. In Puerto Rico, power goes out quite regularly. And at least once a week, my power would go out. So I had a portable generator on my balcony that I would, crank up a little to just like power my electronic devices and try to stay online. But it was disruptive to working as a digital entrepreneur. And now I take for granted, again, here in the US, where I'm going to have connectivity all the time, right? Like I just assume that that's not going to go out. So I definitely see the differences. I spent like a solid couple of months when I first came, and I would just drive around strip malls because I would be so.
There's plenty of them in Florida, right?
There are, and they're all occupied. Like every spot is full. Like everything has a business, and that was mind blowing to me because in Puerto Rico, so many places closed and wouldn't reopen. There'd be damage, after hurricanes or things like that. And so you would go to a strip mall and you'd find so many places that were just like vacant in some of the other areas outside of the metro area. And so it was mind blowing to me to be like, look at this, like there's like 10 businesses in one strip. And I would just drive around. And it just like so many things adjusting again to the abundance of life in the US. And that's good and bad. I think it comes with the good of, yes, you have all these things on your fingertips. You expect full connectivity all the time. You expect to be able to get food, beyond 10 p.m. You expect to have everything convenient. And at the same time, living in the U.S. takes a toll on you. I think physically it takes a toll on you, in terms of like the abundance of food, yes, but a lot of like processed, less healthy foods, a lot of stress. Like living in the US is hard for people. That's why people say they move to Europe and all of a sudden the gut issues that they had when they were in the US are no longer present. So I think it's good and bad. And I chose to be here for the time being because, again, I'm close to family. My parents are aging. It's really important that I'm with them and, spend as much time with them as possible. But I don't know that I'd say that I'd be here forever. I'd be interested to know, how's life in Norway?
Yeah. Well, it's funny when you said that with your mom. My mom recently had some, well, it might have been gut issues. We're not sure. And she was telling the doctor, she thinks, because she's like, when I'm in Norway, because she can't eat a lot in the US, otherwise things start going crazy. But when she comes, she's like, I eat whatever I want because nothing's processed and it's just the laws are stricter. And it's just different. But that's interesting to hear. I think when we grow up in a culture like growing up in the US, and if you've never left, it's maybe harder to see those things. You're not maybe as aware of them as some of those, I'm using your words, like some of the things that might take a toll on you or on an individual. But maybe it's part getting older, part leaving and discovering kind of different ways of life that you can start to build an awareness around, like, hey, maybe, this is just a version of culture and society. And like anywhere else, like maybe not all versions of that are going to fit with you where you're on your life right now. And it's an interesting time in our home country of the United States. I wonder for you, having traveled around and then having the time in Puerto Rico, do you think, is there another country outside of those two that you've thought about settling down in?
Oh, absolutely. I've definitely had
which ones?
I've had like Mamma Mia dreams of going to Greece, like a random island, and just, living my best life. I think I love Greece because it's definitely all that fresh food. You're surrounded by water. It's sunny all the time. Like, it's really that paradise factor, but in the Mediterranean. So I would be sold on that in a heartbeat. I have considered maybe some areas in South America. Like, I've seen, Belize potentially could be a spot that I consider going to. Definitely a lot of people are in Mexico and living, seemingly better quality of life. So it depends. I would be open.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you just got this traditional book publishing deal. And like you mentioned before, you have self-published 5 books, you said. I thought it was 4, but then you said 5. So it's like, that's quite a lot of self-publishing. And I wanted to get some advice. This is a little bit selfish because I'm like debating between these two things right now personally, but also for anybody listening, I think everybody, whether it, a novel, whatever, like, I feel like everybody at some point is like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to write a book, And of course you can do that now with self-publishing, and you don't have to wait for somebody to give you permission to publish. But you have now gone with a traditional publisher for this book, which we're going to talk about, 12 Trips in 12 Months, Make Your Own Solo Travel Magic. We had you on last and we talked about the experience and some of the travel tips, and we're going to getting some practical advice around traveling with a full-time job and getting last-minute deals and all that stuff. So stick with me, listeners. This will be good advice, I think, for everybody. And for a traditional publishing deal, it's interesting because let's like kind of talk about this in parallel with your 12 trips in 12 months. That was, and we're going to get into the mindset there, but that was all about kind of like choosing yourself, saying like, hey, nobody has to give me permission. I'm going to do this. And then you did that in publishing, but now you're locked in with a publisher. And no offense to the publisher, it's listening right now. It's just like, it's a different way of doing things, and you do give up a lot to publish in that way. And so I'm just wondering why you chose that. And, was that like a bucket list item for you? Did it make financial sense? I'm just curious. And then we can get into a deeper chat about some of the key lessons you've learned on each side.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you'd be surprised. Definitely over 80% of people want to write a book. Only 3% do. So it is something that I think, crosses most people's minds. For me, self-publishing was the track that I went on initially because it was so much in my control, because I could really produce a lot and really propel myself as somebody who was trying to make that transition from lawyer to travel blogger and make these digital income streams. So I had originally had a plan to publish 20 self-published books because there was a study or just a general statistic that said that most 6-figure authors have 20 books or more. And so I just thought, great,
that's overwhelming. Can I be a 6-figure author with 1 book, please? I can't even finish one. 20 books? Damn.
You absolutely can. And I think that's a misconception that some people have where like their first book has to be this grandiose, like best manifesto, like life's work. And actually like Eat, Pray, Love was Elizabeth Gilbert's like 6th book. Stephen King, Nora Roberts, they all have so many books, right? And so when you think about it, most authors have more than 1 book because that's how you're doing a career as an author. And if you think about it that way too, it takes the pressure off from having to make that book, that initial hurdle that you're trying to cross, like, I just have to get the first one out there, it makes it a lot less overwhelming, because that doesn't have to be, the most amazing book in the world. It just has to be the start of this author career. For me, I had that in mind, and I was publishing a lot of books that were just informational. How to find affordable flights, 25 ways to work from home, from blog to business was my most recent one. The solo female travel book. So it was really a mix of me, like similar to what I would do blogging, but extended, similar to what I would do in like giving public speaking presentations, but just documented. And so it was really simple. A memoir was a lot different, because now we're delving into storytelling, and we're telling
Getting
a narrative.
personal, Jen.
Yeah.
Getting personal.
Yeah.
You got to lay it all on the line.
You really do. And it's so scary. It's so scary. Because people could disagree and be like, okay, whatever. I don't agree that travel hacking is great. Or, you don't take that personally. But if someone makes these personal comments about you after reading your memoir and you put everything out there, it's really scary. It's a very vulnerable position to be in. And I think everybody who's written a memoir can agree, that that's the toughest part. So for me, it was knowing that this was a whole different type of book, first off. And it wasn't on my radar to write this book until the pandemic hit, and I had a chance to do so, right? Because now I've stopped traveling. Now I've stopped going on kind of this hamster wheel of all the things that get pushed back because what's being prioritized are the press trips and those deliverables. Like, now I have the time. And I thought maybe this is a good time to see if I could land an agent, to find a publishing company, all that is involved with that. And so I started this process in 2020. I started working with a coach to write my query letter, where I talked about what my book idea was and how I thought that I could sell it, why I wanted to differentiate this book from the self-published books, like why traditional publishing and why now with this book. So we had all of that on a one-page letter. Then I attended the Writer's Digest conference, and I did their virtual pitch slam. This was great because it was virtual this year, around for the first time, versus having to go to New York, pay for the hotel, like all of that. It was much more convenient. And so I paid for the pitch slam, and they matched me with 8 agents that were interested in representing memoir, travel memoirs. And I thought that that was so much more convenient than the traditional route that people take, which is finding the agents that they want to represent them and then pitching their inbox like blankly. To me, that's how authors get years of rejections or no answers, and they get really discouraged and they think that their book isn't worth anything. So that extra money that I invested, it was $500 to add the pitch slam, and then plus whatever the Writer's Digest conference was. So it was a couple $100 investment, but it got me in front of agents that already knew they were interested in representing this. So they weren't going to just completely ghost me. And that really helped. And I got my agent from there. I then worked with the coach again to work on my book proposal, which was about 30 pages. It included a marketing plan and 2 to 3 sample chapters. And then I sent that to the agent in July. I got an offer of representation from the agent. And then by the end of that year, December 2021, I got an offer to publish the book and my book deal and my advance from the publisher, Blackstone Publishing.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop.
Tomorrow morning is knocking. Stock your fridge now. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or a sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
Now, back to the show. And I hadn't heard about that, the Pitch Slam Writer's Digest thing, but that's just I think the larger example is keep your antenna open. Perhaps you could call it a hack. I mean, you like hacks, right? We like travel hacks, but like, this is like you said, years of rejection versus, hey, I'm going to spend a little bit, take a little bit of a risk financially, but then, if it works out, I'm going to get matched up with people that are looking for that exact thing. And, for anybody listening right now, whatever their version is of that, whether it's book writing or something else, perhaps there is an event or a organization or something out there where they can kind of do the same thing, or just like start thinking in that way. I think you mentioned being a differentiator, and I think one of the things that differentiates your book, I mean, you even mentioned it in your TED Talk, was like, this sounds like Eat, Pray, Love again, but it's not, because you did all this with a full-time job. So I want to dig into some of the advice there. Before we move on from the publishing stuff, just like, I want to hear your best lessons for self-publishing, because if somebody goes the self-publishing route, because that's something they can control, right? And obviously you have this track record of publishing books, so that helps. And, if somebody's just starting out and taking your advice of like, hey, just get a book done and get it out. But, there are smarter ways to do it, where you can maybe get on the bestseller list. You can maybe earn more income, positioning, research. And, if you're talking to a first-time author who's going to self-publish, you're like, give them the gold here, Jen. Give them the gold.
Yes. Well, I do think you should get it out there, but I don't think you should write a book without researching the market first. So first, if there's no comp books at all, like if you cannot find any book that has covered this topic, you may think that sounds unique. To me, that sounds like there isn't a market for this. So you want to have at least 2 to 3 comp books that you identify. What are the categories that they're ranking in? What are some of the topics that they've covered? What do their reviews say that these books are missing? And how can you fill that gap, particularly if it's an informational book, right? If you're sharing information about a topic or a topic of expertise that you have. So let's say that you want to write a guidebook to Norway. What are some of these other local guides to Norway missing? And how can you fill in that gap? And making sure that you identify again that there is a market to that and how you can fill that gap. So from there, you absolutely want to think about marketing as the most important thing. So yes, write a quality book, but if you write a quality book and you're not selling it and you're not marketing it, nobody's going to see it. Nobody's going to buy it. Nobody's going to find it. And so you cannot just publish a book and then decide my job is done. You have to publish a book and then think very strategically about marketing. Some of the things that helped me in self-publishing was having a launch team. So a lot of people think that their friends and family are people that should buy their book. Maybe your friends and family are like the 2,000 people you're friends with on Facebook. They should be your launch team. They should get a free advanced review copy of your book after applying to be part of your launch team, right? You'll narrow it down to like 100 people or so. And then you send them a free advanced review copy of your book. These are your closest friends. They're like super excited. They want to support you. They're your street team, right? And then you want to involve them in decisions. Ask them, what cover do you like? Where should I go? Ask them questions to involve them in the process. So when that book comes out, you're not publishing a book in isolation. You're publishing a book with a community of people that are excited to see it and are excited to promote it and you. And then I think that's a better way than trying to make the sales to that limited amount of people, because their reviews, they're referring that content to others is going to help you rank and get seen. And so you want to pick categories on Amazon where you're going to be able to rank within the first 20 or so of the books in that category. So you show up on the first page of results. And then if your book has good reviews, not from family, because Amazon will strike reviews from anybody that it links to you personally. So anybody it shares an address with you and things like that. But the friends, the street team that I mentioned, your closest followers, like people that are most hype about you, they'll leave good reviews, and that's going to help your book get seen. And hopefully all of this is also done in moderation. Not like everybody leave their review and everybody buy my book the first day it comes out. Amazon likes to see trickle sales, so it doesn't think you're trying to game the system, but rather that there's authentic continued interest in your book. That's like my masterclass in 2 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Super helpful. And must be nice to have some of the marketing getting handled for you now and getting on podcasts. And I know you've been on some national TV shows and things like that. How is the whole book tour press thing going for you? Do you like it? Is it a grind? I mean, be honest here. I know there's publishers and things might be listening, but yeah, just where are you at with that? Is it tough sometimes? You get tired of talking about the same thing, or?
I think a lot of people think this should be a really exciting time, right? Like I'm publishing a book, I'm going on a 13 city book tour. Like I have a lot happening, and I think I have been bracing myself a lot on how I can make it through this marathon. And so I've been really focusing a lot on my health, like physically, what I'm eating, working out, like as much as I can now, because I know like being on the road is going to make that difficult. And I've worked a lot with both a therapist and a psychiatrist. So I really want to make sure like I am good, because it's a lot to be like, a new city every day, to have to be on for people, to feel like I can't, like even now with all the disclaimers you had to give, like to make me feel comfortable on saying like, I can be honest, right? Or and that's because by default, like you would think like I have to be a persona. I have to like say a certain thing, and that is tough to maintain. And so I have been working a lot on how do I make, and also numbing myself and completely like, I'm not reading reviews. I'm not getting involved in comments. I'm not doing any of this. I'm just going to zone in and like do what I have to do, because if I don't, like, I don't know that I'm going to make it through this summer. So it is an exciting time. And I've been working really hard internally and externally with all the doctors to make sure that I am going to be okay to make it through this time, that I have the support that I need. So it is exciting. But it's a lot on your body. It's a lot on you, it's a lot. And so it's like stepping into a lot of demands that I imagined, like as your life gets a little bit more exciting, it also gets a little bit more stressful. And I think if you don't have the right support systems set up to deal with that, it can be tough. So I've really been working on those support systems.
That's great, Jen. I mean, to hear that, you taking this time, knowing what you're going into, to just kind of, get the self-care, I guess you need to kind of set yourself up to feel good. I can imagine, yes, that's tough you mentioned the persona thing. That is, I don't know, you got certain like maybe talking points and things you want to share and talk about and things like that. But at the same time, you want to be able to be yourself, right? And so that's like trying to find that balance. And that's I've done like morning TV show things before. It's not easy to do when you have 4 minutes or something. The wacky morning news guy is coming out, or, the people are sitting there and then just move on to the next segment. And it feels like, you just sat down and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, bye-bye, next person. And you're just like, what? This is, yeah. And, you wrote a memoir. So you're trying to let people in, let people know who you are. But then you also have there's a lot to balance, I'd say.
It is. But I am very grateful for the opportunity. I'm excited.
Of course. That's not taking away the gratitude thing.
Exactly.
Just, as I'm thinking about this and you're thinking about the things you're going to be going into for this book tour and everything, one of the phrases you said in your TED Talk was, quote, your perceived drawbacks can be seen as benefits. And so in the TED Talk, you were talking about, not having a house or husband or pets and things like that. And at first that was a negative thing. You were like, oh, kind of down. And then you were like, wait a minute, I don't have, these things. It means I can go traveling. But that idea of these perceived drawbacks and kind of, I mentioned at the beginning, like flipping the mindset and maybe there's something here with this book tour, right? Going into it and being like, all right, there's these things that are going to happen, but how can we flip that? And the way you flipped it with travel and what you talk about in the book is this 12 trips in 12 months thing that you did, which was essentially a quest, right? You were working full time. You decided to do 12 trips in 12 months. I just want to tackle this in two parts. First, I want to talk about the mindset stuff behind it. And then I want to talk about the practical side of it, where people can get some tips on what you learned for, traveling and side hustles and, that kind of stuff. On the mindset side, I know you took more trips. I think you went to like 40 cities across 11 countries or something. How did having it as like a framework and a challenge help you or motivate you or in some way that was extra? Like, did you have somebody holding you accountable, or like, how did you do it?
Yeah. And this is actually going to be the topic of my keynote for TBEX in Puerto Rico that I'm giving in July. I'm working on it now. And it's going to be why like a challenge could be exactly what you need to get from point A to point B. And I think so many people make that mistake of like, oh, move in silence, tell nobody what you're doing, right? And that's one way. But I think making your goals public makes it so that you have other people holding you accountable and you don't want to let those people down. So for me, that works like similar to a gym class, right? If I had to go to the gym of my own volition, I'd go with like the intent of this hour plan. And then after like 10 minutes on the treadmill, I'd be like, that was good. I worked up a sweat. Like, good job, Jen. Let's go get tacos.
I mean, Jen, I just ate half a Snickers bar before this interview. So, I mean, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And so for me, the only way I can really effectively work out is to go to workout classes, because there's a start and end time, because there's other people there. There's an instructor. Usually, you know, since I'm lucky enough to have a remote work schedule, I go in the middle of the day. So it's like older women who are maybe retired and they're kicking my butt in these exercises. And that's super motivating to be like, I could do that position too. I'm not going to let this lady beat me. So actually working in that container with others is inspiring. It's motivating. It helps me show up when I know those classes are happening. Whereas if it was just me, I wouldn't have that same accountability. And I think similarly with a challenge, and with that travel challenge for me, I announced it, you know, first I knew I wanted to take it because no matter what, that time was passing. Like, you can't delay the fact that I'm going to be 30, like it or not, in 12 months. Like, this is coming. And every day I get closer.
This was going into from 29 to 30 is when you did this.
Correct. Yeah. Which I think a lot of people relate to, right? When we reach these milestone birthdays, these decades, mid-decades, you question, and especially at 30, because that's when you're entering like adulthood. Like, am I where I want to be? Did I do everything I wanted to do by 30? Am I on track with my life? Like, you start asking yourself these questions that at 20, you're not wondering, because you're like, is it going to be legal to drink yet? And so like, that's not a concern that you have until you start to turn 30. And I imagine the birthdays moving forward as you reflect back and think, you know, all those same bigger questions. And so I think a lot of people can relate to that. And for me, a challenge was a way to distract myself from the worries that came with that. Like, am I not where I want to be by now? You know, do I want to have other things? And how do I switch and put myself into a celebratory mode where I am sending out this year on a good way and in a way that excites me, in a way that I always remember, versus feeling anxious, versus trying to manufacture results, versus trying to hit these milestones just to hit them. And that to me was the best decision. It was a year I will never forget. And that doesn't mean that it was a happy-go-lucky year, right? I had a lot of things go wrong. But I was able to move past all those challenges. And it also wasn't a year that ended with me like finding a guy when I'm traveling and not looking, right? Like, that did not happen. And so I think people have these perceived like happy endings or these perceived ways that the story's supposed to go. But sometimes it really just is about the journey and what you're learning along the way and those experiences that you're making and memories.
So well said. Thanks. Yeah, you mentioned distracting you from your worries, but then kind of changing that into, it sounds like you really just embraced the spirit of the challenge as opposed to the sort of the core, like, you're going to hit your countries and stuff like that. That's giving you the framework within which to operate. But it was the spirit of it that you were kind of embracing. I think that's a big distinction, right? Because then you could with a challenge like that, you could also fall into the sort of like, I need to get it done. I need to hit the thing. Oh, I'm running behind. That could add like a layer of stress that you're trying to eliminate stress, right? You're trying to look back at the end of the year and say, look at this thing I did. And so to me, just hearing this and thinking out loud, that's what I do as a podcaster. I think and talk out loud, for better or worse. Sorry, folks. It's just that idea of having the container, but then embracing the spirit of that container and not beating yourself up in a different way, right?
Absolutely. It was a lesson that I learned then, and it's still a lesson that I'm practicing now today as well. Yeah. I think that you have to be flexible with this challenge because I would love for other people to take it on. And I think the key point is that you can be flexible. Maybe for you, your trip of the month is like, oh, there's always been this farmer's market that I've been wanting to go to here in the city. I've never made the chance to go, or I live 3 blocks from the beach and I'm never there. Like, I'm going to have a beach day. Decide or there's something really cool in my own state. You know, for me, when I moved back to Florida, one of the first things I did was go swim with manatees. It's the only place in the US where you can swim with manatees in the wild. And I felt so bummed that I had lived here for so many years and I didn't get the chance to experience that. So when I came back, that was one of the first things I did. And to me, that counts as a trip. So like, be really flexible. I think really the spirit of travel, as you're talking about and like kind of capturing that essence, is putting yourself somewhere different, doing something new, you know, pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone. And I think that why that's so special and why it becomes so addictive for people is because first, it feels empowering. You feel like, that's really cool. I did that. I didn't even know I could do that. I didn't, you know, like that's awesome. And then it just helps pop your daily bubble of routine and worry and anxiety. And like, you know, it helps you just step outside of that and be like, oh, I just had like a really cool, fun moment. Like maybe it isn't that deep. Like maybe life really is, you know, more about collecting these cool, really fun moments. And to me, that's something that I'm still working on now, right? Like I'm still trying to find grace in how you define goals and, you know, being really happy that you just put yourself out there and also enjoying those small moments as they come. You know, this past Mother's Day with my mom that, you know, we got to spend together was so lovely. And it was just a normal day. We went to the pier. We had lunch by the water. We went to a museum and like, what a nice memory, you know, from something just different, doing something different here that none of us had done before. So, I encourage others to pursue that same spirit of travel and try to find it in the everyday.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. Now, back to the show. Yeah, that was a good way to frame it. You said finding grace within how you set your goals. And, you know, for this one, you notice it's 12 trips in 12 months. It's not 12 countries because that could be... You could change one word and easily make it overwhelming and way more expensive and psych yourself out. And so there is the balance of finding the grace within the goal, as you mentioned, but also within yourself to like, yeah, set something that, you know, pushes you a bit, but not so much that, you know, you can't make it happen, which is a little bit of an art for that. But, you know, in the end, I mentioned this before, this is about choosing yourself. This is another sort of mindset thing that people can have a hard time with, right? You could be, I mean, you were a lawyer doing nonprofit work and, you know, doing a lot of good things with your career there for the world, as you kind of mentioned, I think one of your TED Talks, or I think I read on your blog somewhere, that was, you know, you're coming from that, but then you had the colleague that was like, run as fast as you can, Jen, get out of this. And like, you know, so I'm just using your example because you're here. And also it's like almost the extreme example, right? You're doing this nonprofit legal stuff for entities that really need your help. They need the legal help and you're doing good stuff. And then you're taking off to travel. Isn't that selfish? I don't think so, Jen. I'm just like, I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Sure.
But, you know, this might be the mindset that somebody listening, maybe they have their own version of that, right? Where they're like, well, isn't it, you know, I have to take care of, you know, people have responsibilities. Maybe there's somebody they have to caretake for, or, you know, there's reasons why people can't travel, but there's also maybe perceptions of why they can't travel. Maybe they actually can, but it's about maybe being a little selfish. I don't know. Like, yeah, what's your advice around all of this?
Yes, I think that that's definitely something that people face, particularly women, because we can be, you know, putting children, putting families, putting others before ourselves. But I think everybody gets that same pressure, especially of the guilt when you take off. That's very prevalent in the US culture. You know, you don't take the time off. And then even when you do, you don't unplug. You're like, oh, you could still reach me via email. I am still like, I'll be in the middle of the Arctic and I will be available. And so and that's how we function, right? And so there is that guilt that if you actually go somewhere, if you're enjoying yourself, you're doing something wrong because you're not being productive, you're not working. And I think that you do have to realize, and that's something I think travel helps a lot with, that there is value in just having fun. There is value in just enjoying yourself. That is valuable. It doesn't have to be productive. It doesn't have to make you money. It doesn't have to, like, there's something really wonderful about just enjoying yourself and continuing to play throughout life. It keeps you young. It keeps you more productive, you know, when you go back, because now you're ready to work again better. It's why they tell you to take a walk instead of just like sit for 8 hours hunched over your computer trying to crank something out. Because when you come back from that walk, you're reinvigorated. And travel is that, times 1,000, right? Because you come back and now you're not like angry or bitter that you're like going into the same office today and you're feeling like you haven't had a break, right? Your mind gets to reset. It's like rebooting the computer. And there's value in that. And that's something that, again, for me, still a constant lesson. I had a moment where there was a hurricane last year and it hit St. Pete. Thankfully, everything was okay, but I just didn't want to worry about my car. So I went inland to Orlando and I was like, let me take this chance to make some content, right? So I was like, why not?
You're like, then I can write off my gasoline charge.
Exactly. That was exactly the mindset. So
we've all been there, Jen. Well, the travel content creators know. Okay, yes, I can write this off now.
And that's what I did, right? So I did, and it worked out really well too because of the hurricane. Like the line for the cookies at Disney Springs Gideon Bakehouse, that's usually like a billion hours, was like 30 minutes. So I was able to get this footage. I made, some pretty good viral videos. I had a Harry Potter, butterbeer video that had over 500,000 views. So it was a productive work visit. And then as I was leaving Universal Studios and I was walking back to my car after a full day of work in Universal Studios, just like filming, doing the things, doing the Harry Potter video, I had a voice like screaming in my head. And so I saw the movie theater. There's a movie theater right as you're leaving Universal. And it said that there was like a Little Mermaid, like sing along movie that was starting in like 5 minutes. Right. And my voice was like, it's supposed to be fun. Like you're supposed to be having fun. You're supposed to have fun and like not just work, And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go into this movie theater, this sing along, Little Mermaid movie theater. And at first it was a little bit scary, but I realized I had the whole theater to myself. And so it was like the universe was giving me this pass to play. It was like, we have set you up with this luxury movie theater all for yourself. Nobody's listening to you. So you belt out those Little Mermaid songs to your heart's content.
And did you? Did you sing out loud? Nice.
I did.
How cathartic.
It was amazing. It was exactly what I needed. And it was like, I think why I kept hearing that voice of like, yes, do it. It's okay. You don't have to go back to the hotel and like start doing content right now. Like, just do it. Just go. And so, it was such a unique experience to have, like the recliner theater with the leather seats, like all to myself. And then me just singing like part of that world.
I love it. Well, I like this like nasty Jen inner voice too. That's like, come on, Jen, go have some fun. Just like almost like bullying you in a good way, like a very nice bully, but like, come on. We all need that push sometimes.
Yeah,
that's a good maybe inner voice to have instead of the one that's beating you up. I mean, on the content creation side, because I'm curious. I know on Instagram you call yourself a travel content creator. Maybe people read that as influencer. I'm using whatever air quotes, whatever you want to call it. I never really enjoyed that personally. Like that wasn't my thing, and that's okay because everybody has their different things. This isn't judgmental. It's just that I think it's difficult for me personally to think about creating content while I'm doing stuff and separating the work and the travel. I've tried it before, but I just, for some reason, I didn't like it. I like just traveling and then coming back and talking about it afterwards. Again, just me. I think it's great. And I think you serve a lot of people and inspire a lot of people. And that's, we share a similar mission. That's what I do here on the show. That's what you do with all your stuff and your books and social media and everything. I'm just curious for you personally, is it hard to interrupt the experience? I know you're going in, you're like, all right, I'm going to do this Harry Potter butterbeer thing or whatever. And you're kind of going in knowing you have to do it. But then in that example, you come out and you're just like, go have fun. And, during the butterbeer thing, would it have been more fun if you didn't have to film it? You know what I mean? Like just these questions, because this is part of your everyday life. And I'm just, maybe this is a question for aspiring content creators of any genre, because it's something you might have to do. And I'm just curious in general what your thoughts are on that for yourself.
Yes, you bring up a really good point, and it definitely is not something I talk about often because it does sound like first world problems. There's many other things that people have issues with, but yeah, I would have enjoyed the butterbeer better, and I would have felt less gluttonous if I just had like the one, right? Not like the 7 in one day. Like, so like,
7 butterbeers later.
so like, again, like what kind of problem is this? Like, oh, poor Jen, like she has to eat the butterbeer fudge and drink the butterbeer. And so like,
wait, does butterbeer have alcohol in it?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, because I was linking you to a drunken Jen singing in the movie theater, but no, okay, got it.
No, just very sugar filled.
Yeah, okay.
I think there was somebody that mentioned it can, like in the LA one, like you can go into a bar and like kind of like buy the extra shot and then spike it, but definitely I don't think it's sold on its own with alcohol. It's meant to be non-alcoholic. But it's very sweet, tastes like butterscotch. It's delicious, and they have different forms of it. But yeah, I had that same feeling on a press trip just this past month where amazing experience, amazing dining experiences, but it's a lot of dining in every day. So like I'm eating like a full like breakfast meal, like at this place, you know, where everything comes out, a full lunch meal, like a full snack going to the full, like it's so much food. And again, like what kind of problem is this? But you feel wasteful. Like I always take food to go with me. And I actually tried because like one of them was like really expensive steak. And I was like, damn, this steak is so good. Like, and I just can't eat another bite, but like, I don't want to waste the steak. And so I want to bring it with me. And I was able to keep it like in the fridge, but the flight back was so long. I actually did put it in my carry-on bag, cause I was that determined. It just did not make it back. Unfortunately, it was too long of a like time outside of the fridge for all that food that I was trying to transport. And I felt really bummed about that, right? Because now I felt like that was wasted. So yeah, I think that it can be tough. I like being able to tell the stories of lesser known destinations. So I think when people see where I'm going, because when Paris doesn't need promotion, right? So likely Paris is not going to hire me to do a press trip with them, but maybe a little town in the south of France would, or, you know, in the US, definitely these lesser known cities that I enjoy going. Like I always have people messaging me, like somebody just messaged me on my last one and being like, oh, my husband is from there. You know, it's not nearly as exciting as you make it sound. And I'm like, I believe it is.
All perspective.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Like this is not fake stuff that I'm showing. Like this is all stuff that I have found to do in this area. And I think it's showing you how you can see these places in a new light. So I think that's really exciting. And I love being able to do that. I feel like it's very privileged to be able, like, and in the best way possible, like an honor to be able to go and, you know, talk to people that are waiting to share their life's work with me. And so, and they're doing that because I've been set up, you know, to go here and work. And that is a whole different travel experience than just experiencing something. But to know, like, when I landed in, Chickasaw Country, Oklahoma, we went to see First American artists, and they were there waiting for me to arrive to like show me all of their artwork and like take me through the meeting. And like that to me was so special. And so even though I had been up since, you know, 4 a.m. to catch the early flight, I was still in my airport clothes. Like, again, I had to be on because these people are here and they're waiting for me and they want to share this with me. And I want to be able to convey that in the best way and really share them in the best light. So I think it's a privilege. It's an honor to do what I do. And that's why I enjoy it. And it does have moments where I feel wasteful or I feel like, you know, it can be difficult, but I think it's really great. And I love the storytelling aspect of it. I love being able to show you this place in a new light.
That's great. That makes sense. I mean, you love to write, you tell stories. It's, you know, that's the creative thing that kind of gets you excited about it. Well, all right, let's take a different angle on solo travel, which we've talked about a lot on the show, but I don't know if we've ever approached it from this angle because you mentioned kind of these, I forget the word you use, like sort of these lesser known destinations, I guess. And, you know, for solo travel, we can talk about the power of solo travel just in general, but in terms of destinations, I'm just curious about your thoughts. I think when I think about like a solo travel or going to Dublin, let's say, and you stay at a big hostel or something, like you're probably not going to be alone. You're going to meet people. You're going to go out in groups. It's fairly easy. But then if you start going to these lesser known destinations, it might be a different experience as a solo travel. You might not be in places where you can hook up with solo travelers. Maybe there's not a lot of travelers there at all. So it's this balance of, you know, going out and having the solo travel adventure. Maybe there's times when you want to be around other travelers and meet them, but maybe there's times where you go and you really want to dig into a place. And if you go to a place where there's no travelers and you still want to meet people, you're going to start meeting locals and being maybe more ingratiated in a different way. again, depending on your experience and all that. But yeah, what are some of the lessons you've learned as a solo traveler in some of the lesser known destinations? And we can share some destination recommendations afterwards. But yeah, in that kind of scenario, how do you approach it?
First thing I would do is I would try to connect with somebody over Facebook. There's a lot of solo female travel groups on Facebook, solo female travelers, girls love travel, like things like that. And try to connect with a local on the ground before your trip so that you know what to expect. You can ask them, you can just ask questions from a female that's there and can tell you from a female's perspective what you need to know. I think that's really great. Or you can just search these groups if you don't feel comfortable reaching out to people and see what other people have shared before. And so I think that's a good research process because knowledge is power. Then from there, I think getting a guide, a driver, like I've been best buddies with like my driver in Jordan. We got shawarma for lunch every day, and it was great. And so I think you can make friends with a lot of the people that are there to help you, and they're there to make sure you have a good time. So I will hire, like, let's say somebody for a day trip in Bali. I hired somebody to go and take me on like a photo tour to the Handara Gate and to this special photo spot and all of that. And so we spent the day together, and he took pictures, and we had, ate together, and, I was accompanied the whole day, and I had met somebody, and it was a local. And similarly in Angkor Wat, that's how I saw Angkor Wat. Like I had a private guide that I hired for the day, and it was like maybe $100, and it was like super luxury. I got picked up in this Escalade, and they had cold towels in the back in the fridge so that throughout the day when it was hot, I had like my nice fresh cold towel that I could use to wipe my brow. And he was great, and he knew all the best picture spots. And so, yeah, we hung out for the day. So sometimes I will pay people to be friends with me. And that works really well. And then also, you can do things like, again, along those same lines, a food tour, a haunted walking tour. Like if you want to go out at night and you don't want to do that by yourself, I just sign up for one of these activities. In Amsterdam, I knew that I wanted to see the red light district, but I was a little nervous about walking around at night by myself. So I signed up for a walking tour of the red light district, and we're going to like the windows and stuff, and like fascinating. I did not know this. Did you know that there's a daycare center here, and it's the only daycare center / brothel? I was like, this is the most interesting tour I've ever been on. So it was, and that was a way I experienced it at night. Similarly, in New Orleans at night, I wanted to go out. Intimidating, lots of people are drinking, things like that. So I did a haunted walking tour. I won't even recount the stuff I learned because it is chilling. The stuff that has happened in New Orleans is really just mind blowing. But it was a really cool, different experience. It was a way I got out. You're in a group of like 10 or so people for like 1 or 2 hours. And so in that time, you're talking to each other, and maybe you'll be invited to go somewhere with them afterwards. Like if they're like, oh, after this, we're going to go here. Do you want to come along? Because now you've made friends during that tour. And then last, I would say meetup. It does help in some countries. When I was in Australia, I went to a Spanish speaker meetup. Since I speak Spanish, I was a hot commodity. I'm a native speaker. They don't have me all the way in Australia. And so everybody wanted to practice with me. I made so many friends there. So lots of different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a cool example of just like, yeah, you find an angle like that, you're going to get right in with a bunch of locals and make friends. That's a great example. And, the guided stuff you mentioned, I mean, some of those guided experiences you're going to do whether you're alone or with a couple. And so, like you say, you're just kind of booking those to your advantage in a different way in certain places. I guess for destinations for solo travelers, what have you really enjoyed personally? I know this is very subjective, but what are some destinations that you've really enjoyed being a solo traveler in?
Well, I think it is subjective, like to people, but I think if you're going to go somewhere for your first international trip, it helps to speak the language. So for me, I do feel comfortable where it's somewhere like English speaking or Spanish speaking. So like Spain, I feel very comfortable in, even though they do have like some like petty theft problems. I've always felt safe generally. I love like Barcelona, Madrid, that whole area. I'll be back there for TBEX at the end of this month. New Zealand, I did a road trip around New Zealand, and that was really wonderful. I felt totally safe driving by myself around the country. Like that was a very safe, I just felt like, especially when I got to the Hobbit farm, I was like, this is so idyllic. Like this, I feel so nice here. I feel so calm. I feel like nothing bad could ever happen here. It was just that kind of place. Definitely in some of those spots in New Zealand, you get those vibes. So I think that those are great places to go if you're looking to be safe. And then in general, just places that are used to accepting tourists, right? Because it's going to be easy for you to navigate. If you're looking for somewhere to go by yourself for the first time, maybe not necessarily the most rural place, but somewhere that knows tourists well. So I love the south of France. I loved, doing a road trip around the south of France that's in the book. And I thought it was just so beautiful that you could just pull your car over and see thousands of sunflowers just in a sea of yellow. I went to the places that Van Gogh painted in real life, and that was a really fun scavenger hunt for me. So I think find what you like and what excites you, and then find somewhere that maybe is just used to travelers. It's there's a lot of information out on it. So you have a lot of research going into that. And then as you get more comfortable, you can go to those off the beaten path places. Like, I know that I was a little bit nervous about going to the Middle East for the first time. So definitely Jordan, like Qatar, those destinations. And now like the Middle East is one of my favorite regions. I can't say enough about it, right? Like it's amazing. I feel like a princess every time I go there. Cuba, I was really nervous about because so many people had fled Cuba. And so I was like, I feel like I'm going in the wrong direction. And I was really nervous. And I had a great time with the people that I met along the way, not blind to the difficulties of the island, but definitely making connections with the locals there and learning firsthand their experiences. So I think that as you get more just well-versed with these trips under your belt and feeling like, okay, I did that, I feel confident, I can go a little layer, further now. You can start exploring beyond that.
Would you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert? Or somewhere on the scale?
I guess I've always considered myself an extrovert because I'm so open to talking to people. I've always been like, I was in Model UN. And so like part of how you get a resolution pass is you have to go around this room and convince like 400 people to vote for you. So so I've been trained like how do you get in and out of a conversation in a room like that? So you spend like 5 minutes with each person, like very strategically. I've always been in like politics, Model UN, like law. And so those were the skills that I have. And I guess I thought that I was extroverted because it was easy for me to do that. But I'm realizing that I do recharge on my own. That's why I like having my own space. That's why I like coming home and just being alone. I don't really stay with people when I travel places. Like I have this book tour now and I know people along the way, but I'm like, no, I need a hotel room because I need a place.
Well, I mean, yeah, because you're talking to people all day and then, more talking. You're just like,
I can't. Like I can't be on when
You're like, I write so I don't have to talk. Come on. Come now.
I just want room service and like a robe. Yes. So, I think.
Well, here's a burning question I know somebody's listening and this is on their mind. I know it. And in fact, we just got a listener voicemail about this pretty recently. When to take the leap from the regular job, again, using air quotes here, to whatever it is. It could be full-time travel. It could be, a gap year, a summer off, a 1-month trip. I don't know, a leap to another job or trying a remote job, whatever, just like a lifestyle change type of leap. And, it's one thing I'm thinking about your story. And I was excited to ask you this because with your background, I mean, I worked in restaurants for many years, so this is no offense to anybody that's working in a restaurant there, but like, I feel like if I'm a waiter somewhere, it's a lot easier to take the leap and just quit, a restaurant job to go traveling, as opposed to your story, which is years of education, all kinds of crazy hours studying to pass the bar, to become a lawyer. And I'm sure you have people saying, you're throwing this away and everything like that, which, you're in good company here. We know we agree with your decision. Not sure everybody listening, but you know what I mean? There's another hurdle there where you're cutting the tether, you're cutting the line on something that took a lot more of a time and perhaps even financial investment. I'm not sure if you paid for law school or if you got grants or whatever. Yeah. So can you talk about your experience going and making that transition and where your headspace was, and maybe just some advice here for anybody listening?
It was not easy. I knew that there was a big change coming after the year was over. I was home for Christmas and I was reflecting on this, and I remember feeling very emotional because I could feel that I was on the precipice of something, and it's scary to be on the precipice of something new. It's scary to not know what's coming next. And also for me, I may not be the best example because I actually wasn't monetized when I quit my job. I had my one self-published book, but really my crutch was that I had been teaching English online throughout that year. So I had teaching English online as something that I could ramp up. I was making $20 an hour working remotely. I knew I could always do that to be able to support myself while I was building the other income streams. So the first income stream was the book, then was monetizing my website and having, publishing earned income in passive income through Mediavine in January 2019. Mind you, I quit my job in April 2018. And then my first, kind of sponsored brand deal I didn't get till, again, that summer of 2018 or maybe 2019. And so the years start to blend together. So I didn't have all of these things set up when I quit is the point. And I didn't have like this major savings account. I didn't have these perfect settings that I think a lot of people wait for and that maybe won't ever come. What I did have was an ability to monetize remotely that I felt was enough to get me through. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to devote myself fully to seeing if any of these things could work out if I was still in law, because I had been working on developing my blog as a side hustle, the whole time. And it just felt like it got the leftovers of everything that I had. Everything that I had at the end of the day, what's left over energy wise is what gets poured into it, right? Versus the best of me. And so it was risky and it was scary, but I think I still have to deal with this again. These are all lessons that are ongoing. It's not like, oh, you've reached this pinnacle. You have achieved this checkbox in your life and you're done. And so this is still something that I have to deal with as an entrepreneur, where you have moments where it's super scary. When the pandemic hit, my entire, everything I had worked for in terms of getting that Mediavine earned passive income up.
That's the ad revenue for your blog, just so people know.
Correct. Yeah. So per 1,000 visitors that I get to the blog, I get paid a certain amount of money. And I was making over $100 a day just from that. And then when the pandemic hit, it went down to $3 a day. So it completely disappeared. And I've had every one of my income streams at some point disappear. TikTok is my biggest channel. It's potentially being banned now. There's always something. Google now has the algorithm updates that's completely bashed everybody's site out of existence and search results, right? And so there's always something. Freelance travel writing that I thought maybe was going to be more steady. These major publications are laying off all their staff. They're cutting their magazines. Nat Geo doesn't even offer a print magazine anymore. So they've moved to a digital first focus. So there's so much change happening all the time. And it's so easy as an entrepreneur to be like, this is terrible. I just want to get a stable job.
Oh, we all have that fantasy sometimes. Every entrepreneur listening to this is like, should I? There's that day where you wake up and you're like, should I just get a regular? And you're like, no.
Every single one. We all have this thought. And so I think you're always going to be struggling with this. And if you're somebody that is, I think you pick where you want to be. And if you know that you're somebody that you really want to pursue these passions, whether it's travel, whether it's content creation, whether it's, whatever else you have an expertise in, that you're like, I want to make this what I'm doing, not this, full-time 9-to-5 job. I want to make this my business. Then you just have to accept that there's going to be ups and downs. You just have to accept that there's not ever going to be a perfect time to make that leap. If you have it, congratulations. Congratulations on having all the giant savings, all of the backing and funding that you need to get started, all of the perfect ideal conditions at home to go, that's amazing. You are a unicorn. Otherwise, most people, there will be a reason not to do things. And I think it's really just realizing that there's always going to be that reason. And it's always going to be hard and there's always going to be waves. And you just have to decide, this is what I want to devote my energy to. And I don't think there's any one right or wrong. Maybe you want to devote your energy. It really just comes down to, do you want to devote your energy building this company that a lot of people love and believe in? And, people do that. There are people who have very fulfilling careers working for Delta and doing Delta content creation and and they're still in travel and they love that. And So maybe that's what you want to do, and you want to work for a great company and you want to have, these colleagues and you want to be part of that brand, or you want to make your own brand. And you really, in my experience, you fall into one of the two people. And if you're a person who wants to make your own brand, it's really hard to work for someone else because it feels like a part of your soul is dying every single day that you are building somebody else's brand and not your own, because it feels like you're not really being authentic to yourself, like you're not sharing the things you want to share. And so if you're somebody that's listening to this, wanting to make that transition, like it's been a nagging thing that's still in the back of your head, you just can't get rid of it, it's probably because you're that kind of person and because you're meant to create and build something of your own. And there's no right or wrong. I think there's amazing lifestyles and amazing opportunities and amazing things to be done either way that you choose. But for me, I knew that I was one of those people that every moment that I spent, even still to this day, like during the pandemic, I took on a job that I'm very grateful for, but I was making social media content for a coding bootcamp. Very grateful. Love them. Amazing. So happy for that opportunity and how it got me through the pandemic when things were slumped. And it felt inauthentic to me to make content. Like every time I made content for them, I thought like, this is time I'm taking away from building my account. This is time that I'm not doing, like this is energy and effort that I'm putting that's not being put into myself. And every time I think about applying for a job, that same thing happens when they're like, when I read the description and it's like, this is how many articles you have to write a week. And I can't help but think, if I wrote that many articles a week for my own site, it's so, you can't turn it off. And so you're either one or the other of those people. And I think if you can't get it out of your head, just make the leap, because you then know that you are employable. You then know that you have these skill sets and you can always go back to what you were doing. I always thought I could go back to law. And I still have my bar license that I pay to keep inactive. It hurts me every time I have to pay $170 a year and I haven't practiced law, but I have it just in case, I go back. So I have that. I'm still qualified to do these things, but I also don't want to. And I know that I'm happy with the path that I'm in. And honestly, if I were to go back to a job, it would probably be something now in the travel space, not necessarily law.
Yeah. Okay. So isn't there some kind of legal loophole? You can be like, I'm unemployable. So I'm going to need to put a freeze on this $170 annual fee. Well, we'll work on that. You're right. It's hard to turn off. And the question is, which challenges do you want to kind of deal with? Do you want to deal with the challenges of the employee challenges or the entrepreneurial challenges? Everything comes with challenges, right? The advice from the book, I wanted to get a couple quick, sort of your best advice on how to, because you did all this with a full-time job. And so I think that's encouraging for people listening. And that's like one of your unique angles, I think, is this idea that, okay, well, yeah, you want to make travel a part of your life. You want to even have transformative trips. Well, you did do that while you were working full time. And so maybe that's a combination of just, extending your days off, getting last minute deals. Just give us your best, 3 bits of advice here on travel with a full-time job.
Yeah. So one of the things that helped was taking red-eye flights. So I know they're not comfortable. I know they're not fun, but if you really have a tight timeline, I would take a red-eye on a Thursday or Friday night, and I'd come back on Sunday. And that's enough that you can do a major European city. If it's, everything within that city, if you're not driving too far, so you can do Madrid, you could do Lisbon, you could do Paris, you could do Amsterdam, you could do all of that in a long weekend. And you can get there relatively cheap using budget airlines like Play Airlines. They have $99 flights to Europe. North Atlantic Airways, they have Atlantic flights. And then French Bee also has some really good deals. So these are some examples of budget airlines you can find. $99 flight overnight, to Iceland. It's a no-brainer. And so that's a way that you can expand and get, some international travel on those longer trips. I also like to plan. At the time, I was definitely taking off months in advance. So I would be the first one on the calendar to request any time off. And I encourage you to do the same. And I know maybe again, you're like, oh, that's so selfish. Let my other coworkers. No, it's dog eat dog. My day off has been on the calendar for months. So to the extent that you're allowed to do that at your job, I would reserve as early as possible those days off that you want. And I would plan them around holidays, again, to the extent that you're able to. And so if you can add, for instance, for me, I had 4th of July, it was on a Tuesday, and we had that Monday off as like a gratuitous day, which I've never had before in my life. That's what happens when you work for like a government agency kind of thing. And so I was able to get a 6-day trip for just taking 2 days off because, you know, the weekend, Monday, Tuesday, and then I took 2 days off, Thursday, Friday, and I had a 6-day trip. So try to plan it around those existing holidays, how you can tag on your like 1 or 2 days of paid time off so that you can spread it out over the year. You don't have to take like all your paid time off on that one vacation and then you're stuck for another year before you get those days renewed. Yeah. And then I think also take your sick days. If you're somebody, I think if you have separate sick days and PTO, which I did, I had like 5 days of sick leave in a year. To me, I feel like, and this is always a mentality I've had, like even in high school, like I would be like, I saw enough signs today. I'm going to take a mental health day and decide to not go to school. And I still graduated with honors. I still had a full scholarship and all of that. But I feel like mental health is just as important. So if you feel like you need a break, if you feel like you're burnt out, just take a day and take that sick day and, you know, do something fun that you want to do for you and don't feel guilty about taking that sick day. Obviously, like determine where you're at with your health. But for me, I was younger. I didn't really have the need for having sick days accrued. And so they were just sitting there. And so use them. That's time that's been allocated for you. I don't think you need to explain yourself. I don't think you need to call in and be like, my whole family's down. Just take the day and take it guilt-free because it's time that's yours. And I think we leave so much of that on the table. So to your discretion, but I encourage it.
Taking a mental health day, that expression, which I feel like that's relatively new. That is kind of like the thing that allows you to do it sort of maybe more guilt-free. Because, you know, if I was just cutting school, I'm just cutting school. But if I'm taking a mental health day, now I'm taking care of myself. So, hey, whatever story you need to tell yourself to make it, you know, it's you got to do it. It works. And I mean that, of course, it's legitimate too, to sometimes you just need a day for your own mental health. And that is what it is. What is your best seemingly counterintuitive travel advice?
Talk to strangers. So I think I think this is why I call it solo travel magic. When we travel with somebody else, you have a buffer, right? So you have somebody that you can talk to in your language. You have somebody that if something goes wrong, you troubleshoot together. So you are traveling the world, but you're doing so kind of with a safety blanket of sorts. When you're traveling by yourself, you're fully immersed. You have no choice. Like, you are speaking whatever language they are speaking. Like, you're going to communicate, you're going to mime, you're going to do whatever you need to do because there's nobody there to talk with you otherwise. And similarly, I think it's my mind blanked because I went to miming in Greece in my mind and how I really had to mime to like this taxi guy. And he was like, I have no idea what you're saying. And actually what I did was one good tip that I have for that is I gave, I use it still to this day, carry around your hotel address in the local language, have them write it down. And that way you can give it to the guy. And then when they're like, I have no idea what you're saying, you can just be like, I need to go here. And then they'll be like, okay, fine. So yes, talking to strangers.
That's a great move. Yeah. Nice.
I think it can. And then one really, an example of that's in the book and a way that it kind of surprised me. So I got to, an opera early. I went to attend an opera by myself. And when I was at that opera, and since I got there early, like on Italian time, it was like super early. So absolutely nobody was there and except the cast. And so I was able to talk to them because I was there. I was by myself. And I thought like, you know, I could sit here quietly by myself or I could like try to make conversation. And so I did that. I talked to these strangers instead of just being like, let me just, you know, wait until the show starts. And then halfway through the show, they decided to stop the opera and dedicate a special song to me. You know, they said, we're going to dedicate a special song to the girl in the front row. And I was like, ooh, like what girl? And then I realized it was me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that was just by virtue of being enthusiastic, talking to them ahead of time, like being friendly. And that made them like appreciate that, reciprocate it, and like give me that special gift. And so I think that you get a lot of benefit from talking to others.
Yeah. I'm going to let you go in a minute. I promise. I know I've had a lot of questions, but what is your best advice for the side hustle thing, working for yourself? How do you keep the balance?
In terms of how you still enjoy things.
Yeah, I guess, or maybe it's business. If I could leave it open, right? Because there's a lot of, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on just business, but what are the one or two things that you do regularly that seem to work for you to keep things going for yourself, so you can keep the lifestyle you want going?
Definitely freelance travel writing, and it's something that I've been more careful of because I get invited on a lot of press trips, but I've been very strict on I only do paid press trips. So I keep freelance travel writing. It's been interesting. That's something I'd actually like to drop because I feel like I don't ever get the paid press trips like I do with an influencer trip, but I keep it because now I'm at the point where editors approach me for assignments. So I'm currently working on 4 assignments, 4 articles where the editors came to me with those assignments. And I think that's I wasn't expecting that this month, but now I got these, extra income from these articles. So I keep that alive. I keep networking, I keep bylines up, and I got LinkedIn Premium because of LinkedIn for Journalists. So that's $60 a month, the LinkedIn for Business. And I get that just because I had 5 bylines in the last 5 months. So that's something I keep going. It's a steady trickle. It helps me be seen. It helps me get invited to things. So I do appreciate that, even if it's not my main income stream. Definitely public speaking is another one. So I try to do different presentations for people. I've worked with EO groups like a gym lead converter. Sometimes I'll talk about social media. I'll talk about self-publishing. So different ways that people can do these things. And that's good. I think I worked really hard to do the 3 TEDx talks so that people would take me seriously as a speaker and that I could command, speaking rates. So that's something that I work on, not necessarily, again, my main income. I would say my main income is the blog, the website, the sponsored posts that I do as an influencer, the affiliate, the work that I do promoting brands and destinations. And then some courses.
Sounds like just, being flexible. I mean, you're doing a lot of different things and keeping your options open. I mean, that seems to be the overarching theme there to me. Being open, being flexible.
Absolutely. Especially because you have to just identify what your core skill set and your core expertise is. So for me, I know I have an interest in travel, these destinations, and I like storytelling. I like telling the stories of the people I meet along the way. And so that's a core skill set that can really translate to whatever comes next, right? So for now, it's writing and also blogging and also content creation, but I don't know what it'll be in the future. I joked yesterday that it could be making holograms. I don't know what's coming next, but whatever it is, I'll adapt and use my skill through that medium.
Jen Ruiz, the first hologram influencer. Thanks for joining us today. No, I'm kidding. I do want to give props to your book, 12 Trips in 12 Months, Make Your Own Solo Travel Magic. No, we're not talking about holograms. We are talking about travel. Yeah, I guess let everybody know where they can find you if they have questions. Is the best place just your website for all the social stuff, or where do you want people to go to check you out?
Absolutely. So my website is jenonajetplane.com. My socials are all under the same handle at jenonajetplane. But to learn more about the book, you can go to 12tripsin12months.com. I have a free mini webinar on there to help you travel more. So kind of sharing my best tips for how I was able to do the challenge and hopefully inspiring you to take your own. And you can also find us on Instagram at 12tripsin12months.
Nice. Good luck with the book tour. You're a rock star. I'm honored that I got the time to chat with you. And thank you so much for your time. Wishing you the best of luck with this, and glad we had a chance to share your expert advice today on the show. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
There you have it. Thank you to Jen Ruiz for stopping by the show. jenonajetplane.com. We got all the links in the show notes. Congrats once again to her on the new book. And I hope you came out of that with some food for thought, some new ideas and perspectives on how you might want to tackle some of your own situations right now. We all have situations. I'm using air quote. We really do. No matter how long you've traveled or been in business or whatever it is that you're kind of working through, there are always new challenges that prop up. There are always things that may hold you back. It all starts in our mind, right? And that was the power question I pulled from this episode that I wanted to share with you as we come out of this. And then I will dig into the old quote drawer in a minute and pull out a random quote for you. We'll see what we get. We'll see what the universe has me pull today after I do that. But this power question is on the back of something we talked about in this interview, which is identifying your perceived drawbacks and turning them into benefits, something that Jen did as we discussed. And the question that I came up with is this: can you identify your perceived drawbacks? And if you look at them differently in some way, can they be seen as benefits? This is a question I'm working through right now. And, you might not be able to flip all of them. This isn't about being like, super positive and, nothing can keep me down and everything's all hunky-dory. Like, some of these things are just going to be, they're maybe not perceived drawbacks. They're actually, difficult challenges that you might not be able to flip. But is there a way to flip some of them? Is there a chance that maybe, perhaps, a few of those drawbacks are just perceived and that you could actually use them to your advantage? This is giving me a new way to kind of think about the current struggles and challenges I'm going through, and I guess giving me an opportunity to reframe them. So maybe perhaps that's what this is. This power question is just something, a bit of an exercise to give yourself a chance to reframe perhaps some of the mental loops that have been going on that you feel like are holding you back. Maybe there's a way to use them to your advantage. So that's my little rant there. I like to do this for myself as much as for you all listening out there. So I hope that's helpful. And as we close this out, I do want to give a shout out to a listener who dropped me a line, and it's Christy. Hello, Christy. If you're listening, thank you for doing so. She said, "Good afternoon. I always love getting your newsletters and catching up on all the podcast episodes." By the way, she responded to one of my newsletters. If you want the free newsletter, zerototravel.com/newsletter. My last plug for it. Okay. She goes on to say, "We are preparing for 5 months of travel with our 3 school-age kids. We were originally planning to keep and rent out our home, but are now in the process of getting ready to sell along with our cars and most of our furniture. We will be leaving a small storage unit and 2 college-age kids behind and traveling through Europe and Southeast Asia for 5 months. So excited for this adventure for our family and love hearing all the stories on the pod and from others who travel. Thanks for all your hard work." Thank you, Christy, and giving you the old thanks and sending some good energy your way as you prep for this big trip. And you heard what she said, that they were originally planning to keep and rent their home, but now they're in the process of getting to sell. You just never know what direction things will take when you actually get on the path. So, might be a good reminder to just, when you're kind of prepping for either a big trip or something else, it's like kind of be flexible with those plans, right? You don't have to be married to them. You can have the ideas, but, maybe things will change, and maybe the thing that seems to be overwhelming and hard actually changes and becomes something different because you changed your mind. You just really don't know till you get into that process. It sounds like they decided to sell their home after they were in the process of getting ready to travel. So in order to get to that point, we have to get into the process, whatever that means. So again, I'm working through this myself. I'm working on getting into the process of a new thing. And you might have heard in the interview, maybe that's a book. I don't know. But I'm working through these questions as well, and I figure I just share them here, and I hope they're helpful for you. So anyway, congratulations to Christy. Good luck on your trip. Let me know if you pass through Oslo, Norway. I'm actually meeting up with a listener next week, which is awesome. I love to hear from people who are coming through here, so let me know if you come through town. Okay, pulling a random quote out of the quote drawer. This one's from G. Krishnamurti. I'm sorry, I'm butchering this name. I need my glasses on for this one. Okay. It says, "Knowing the cause of something is not going to help you to be free of it." Knowing the cause of something is not going to help you to be free of it. Okay, I think that one, sums up this episode nicely in many ways. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by zerototravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.